Baroness Warsi, the title of your talk tonight is "The Enemy Within," isn't it? It helps if you get it right.
It is.
The Enemies Within. That's quite a provocative title. Where's that come from?
So the title of the talk and the title of the book is called "The Enemy Within," and the reason why I used that title was because it was something that I was called when I was in government. Okay. So when I used to sit in cabinet and on the National Security Council, a right-wing commentator said, "How can we deal with the war on terror when we have her, Baroness Warsi, the enemy at the table?" And I just thought it was a horrible insult. It basically said to me, "You don't belong and we don't trust you." And I therefore felt that the best way of dealing with such an insult was to field it well. And this book is my way of fielding that insult, to prove how that term is a load of nonsense.
Mm. So you grew up in Dewsbury.
I did.
That's true. So you're a Yorkshire lass, and come good if you like, and you're a peer of the realm. Tell us a little bit about that journey. Did you ever expect that you'd end up in the House of Lords? Maybe you did.
No, I mean, I was born in a tiny little house. We didn't even have a inside toilet or bathroom, and it was. I don't think in my wildest dream, me or my family or my parents, anybody thought that I would even end up in politics. Never mind the House of Lords. But sometimes I kind of look back and think you see so many things that happened in your life. Sometimes it's just about being in the right place at the right time, the right issue, motivating you to do something about something that kind of frustrates you. And for me, I mean, I'd always been involved in politics from my student years, but I only became involved in frontline politics in my 20s.
And you talked about motivations there, what was the motivation or that one moment that flipped it for you and you thought, no, actually I want to be a politician?
Well, for me, I grew up when the defining other, the issue of concern, the kind of racism was about the colour of your skin, and I regularly say what radicalised me was the colour of my skin, and I felt that by the time I'd got into my 20s, we'd started to come to terms with that, and it wasn't fixed, but it was getting a lot better. I felt very comfortable being British and Asian. And then suddenly I was no longer British and Asian, I was British and Muslim. And at that point I felt that we needed to fight all these battles over bigotry all over again. And I left Britain for about a year, and I suppose it was my way of running away and saying I really don't want to do this all over again. But then I felt that was running away, and I needed to, if I felt that I wanted my country to be better, then I needed to come back and play my part, and that's really when I got involved in frontline politics.
Mm. Well, how did that sort of invite to the cabinet table come about? What connections were made there?
Really interesting. So I'd fought a seat in 2005, my home seat in Dewsbury. I'd obviously started working with the party nationally. I worked quite closely with Michael Howard. Michael Howard introduced me to a young man called David Cameron. Whose campaign I became involved in. And so really from his early days when he was selected to be leader of the party, in fact I introduced him when he did that fantastic speech that we all remember without notes in Blackpool. He came to Dewsbury en route to Blackpool. So I'd started working with David for a number of years, and then you'll recall that Tony Blair stepped down, Gordon Brown came in, and we thought he was going to hold an election. And so we were starting to get onto an election footing, and that's when David asked me to join the shadow cabinet, to be part of the team that took us into that election. And because I wasn't in the Commons, the only place I had to be then was the Lords to be able to take up the shadow cabinet seat.
So you were the first Muslim member of the Privy Council. That's true, isn't it? You've been a bit of a trailblazer there, I think, for Muslim women, well, Muslims in general, I imagine, in terms of the demographics. If there's one thing that you would say to women of the Muslim faith, but of all faiths, really, I suppose, of how should they go about making sure that they can be themselves in such high ancient institutions in Britain?
I think there are two things here. I mean, first of all, when I sat around the cabinet table, I was the only member of a black or minority ethnic group. So we didn't have any other Asians or any other black people or any other minority, and therefore I think that in itself was I didn't pick that up until actually cabinet meetings in when I looked around and I realised that we actually had an all-white cabinet, except for myself. And what I would say is that I've always been true to myself. It's you know, I've always been lucky enough to have a real sense of my own identity and all the bits that make up my identity. And you can only fake it for so long. And there was no way that as a working class Yorkshire Asian woman, I was going to turn up and sit around a table of lots of nice boys from Eton and I was going to fake it and pretend that I fitted in. So I kind of made a virtue of standing out.
Yeah, I think that was a very interesting interview, an insight for the people at home. I hope the talk this evening goes really well. I hope you get lots of good questions. And thank you very much for being with us today at Leeds Trinity.
Thank you.
Thank you.